Hello, once again, folks, and welcome back to Chris Wyatt Reports. This is Chris in central Pennsylvania. News out of South Africa that the ANC is seeking to intervene and get the United States removed from possession of Guantanamo Bay. The ANC has continued its distraction efforts abroad, ignoring domestic crises as it called on the United States to immediately end its occupation of Guantanamo Bay in the Caribbean. Now, the calls were made at the 7th Africa-Cuba Solidarity Conference in White River in Mpumalanga. ANC Deputy Secretary General Nomvula Monkonyane stated, Cuba is now feeling a pinch around economic isolation. We're looking at opportunities that exist now among friendly nations of the world and see how best we can use those relationships and economic platforms to undermine the blockade and demonstrate that it is not the Cubans alone that are affected. Only there is no blockade, and friendly nations? Perhaps it's time we stop giving South Africa a free ride. These arrogant insults are enough. They're only free in no small measure because of our actions. There is no blockade. A blockade is not what is happening in Cuba. A blockade is closing to international commerce by military force the coast of another entity. A blockade prevents third parties from undertaking normal commercial activity, and a blockade is an act of war rather than merely exercising one's own prerogatives. By contrast, an embargo is when one nation establishes a policy not to trade with another nation and not to allow its own ports or territory to be used for commerce with that nation. Establishment of an embargo is a prerogative of any nation. For decades, the United States has had this embargo on trade with Cuba. This is a policy decision which has been made by the government. There is no blockade. The statements of the deputy in the ANC are a flat-out lie. For more than a century, the United States has maintained a naval presence on the southeastern coast of Cuba. Per the United States Navy's description of that base, Naval Station Guantanamo Bay is a forward, ready, and irreplaceable U.S. sea power platform in the Caribbean. It preserves America's strategic influence in the Caribbean by maintaining a deep-water U.S. naval station and ensuring effective support across military and interagency operations. Now, the strategic importance of the bay close to the Windward Passage between Cuba and Haiti, which links the Atlantic Ocean to the Caribbean Sea and the Panama, was recognized during the Spanish-American War back in 1898. Gitmo is a 45 square mile or 116 square kilometer U.S. naval base, which includes fortifications and airfields. It shares a 17-mile fenced border with Cuba. In 1901, the United States passed the Platt Amendment. The amendment required Cuba to lease land to the U.S. for coaling and naval stations. The purpose of the amendment was to ensure the independence of Cuba by maintaining a military presence in the area. In return for helping it gain independence from Spain, Cuba granted America full jurisdiction and control of the land surrounding Guantanamo Bay in 1903, agreeing that the U.S. would pay about $4,000 per year to lease the land. Since 1959, when Fidel Castro overthrew the government, Cuba has refused to cash the checks for the lease. The communist Cuban government has continued to demand the U.S. return Guantanamo, but that is not going to happen anytime in the near future. The United States sees Gitmo as a strategically significant base. The Coast Guard and Navy ships regularly refuel and resupply at the station while serving missions in the Caribbean, and the facility's location allows seacraft to extend their counter-narcotics and rescue operations in that body of water. Cuba, for its part, considers the United States' presence at Guantanamo Bay an occupation and has unsuccessfully demanded the return of the territory. Now, no doubt, a flailing political party seeking foreign distractions from its failures at home is what is in play here with the African National Congress. Now, most of the world thinks of Guantanamo Bay or Gitmo. They think of the detention center where accused terrorists have been housed since 2002. No doubt South Africa, acting as an agent provocateur for its masters in Moscow and Beijing, is happily interjecting itself where it has no skin in the game. The problem here is Pretoria is walking a dangerous path. The ANC's actually managed to anger its closest friends in the United States, like Joe Biden. First with expropriation without compensation, then the Lady R incident, then its warm support for Hamas after its October 7th barbaric attacks, and now by sticking its nose into U.S. national defense policy. The ANC seems completely oblivious or uncaring to the damage it is doing with its second largest trading partner. Perhaps it's time to send the ANC a message and suspend their preferential duty-free access through the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act. They've already been ineligible since 2018 by abrogating property rights with the discussion of an amendment to the Constitution for expropriation without compensation. There's already a possibility to expropriate with compensation, but they simply want to steal from others. Now they're intentionally undermining U.S. national security. This is a clear violation of the standards of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act to grant duty-free access to our marketplace. If Ramaphosa wants to pick a fight, the Biden regime is an ironic target. The ANC, unfortunately, is once again lying to the world. There is no blockade of Cuba. There is simply an embargo, which affects only U.S. trade with Cuba. Stop gaslighting the rubes, ANC, and stop falling for the lies of the ruling party in South Africa, which clearly has an agenda that's not in the interest of South Africans. It's not in the interest of Americans. It's not in the interest of freedom-loving people around the world. It's simply in the interest of furthering the goals and objectives of despots in Moscow, Beijing, and Pretoria. There you have it, folks. You may not like this video, but it is factual and it is accurate. And the truth of the matter is the ANC is looking to distract from its failures in electricity, economic suppression, pervasive poverty that it has caused, the dumbing down of education standards, and a host of other failures, including infrastructure and the murder of 82 South Africans each and every day with a failed criminal justice system not protecting South Africans and a corrupt police service under the control of someone who tells us he's not a garden boy. If you're not a subscriber, please become one and give us a like on the video. Appreciate your support for the channel. God bless and take care. And hey, Washington, it's time to remove South Africa from AGOA. Now they're interfering in our national security. Enough is enough. What say you?